back to another episode of the I Hate Insurance podcast.
Yep, I heard that on the news today. Everybody hates insurance, and I agree. It's stupid. So anyway, we're lucky to have Cindy Hargis here with Exum Mountain Guides, who I believe I started insuring in like 1985. Dealt with Peter Lev and Rod Newcomb and Al Reed, and they were, leaders in the industry, and they it was like, it still is the number one guiding business in the country in the Grand Tetons, and they were trouble. Greg Smith here, who ran Wasatch Powderbird Guides, he was in trouble, but they were well respected by the government agencies, and they wanted them to continue to operate. And so, meeting them, and then I think you guys bought them out in 87, 80.
I became an owner in 2001.
Oh, really?
And was just a small part-time shareholder for a number of years. And then I met Nat, and Nat bought a few shares, and then slowly we bought out the others.
Right. And so Peter, Mr. Exum, right, was who they bought it from.
Right.
And I don't know the deal they had with him, but I know he was still involved.
He was involved, but very minimally.
Right.
He went back to teaching and just his solo life.
Right. And then before you were there, and when the big accident, and I think it was mid-'80s, late '80s, with Jim Bridwell, who was a great guide. And as I said last night, I think that's, you do something for 43 years like I've been doing. The goal is to do it better every day. You don't have to get a lot, 1% every day adds up. And looking back at that, I know that was devastating to Jim as a guide, because good guides think they can prevent that stuff from happening. And again, my opinion is that wasn't his fault. The guy, untied where he shouldn't have, and then he tried to go up over the last kind of like intermediate move and fell out. I know it ruined Jim Bridwell's life. And that's the thing I know more today is that, everybody's affected by an accident, and having a plan, right? Everybody jumped into shape. We were just with Bill Dvorak. He had a quadriplegic case, and his crew acted awesome, as did Exum. And, our job is to shepherd. I use the Mount Everest example, right? You need the best guides to take you to the top of Mount Everest or Exum. And, it's kind of like an insurance claim. You don't want to be dealing with inexperienced guides getting you through a, very difficult, challenging time. And so that, case, we worked with Exum and resolved it amicably. We didn't have to go to court. We didn't win. They didn't lose. And, I think it was the foundation for a good relationship with us, with the claiming industry. We not only are proud to insure Exum, but we do many of the other park service, and that's probably your biggest challenge, is making sure you keep the park service happy. If it's not insurance, you got to keep both of them happy. But we're blessed and lucky to, have been doing business with Exum since 1985 and the climbing industry. And we, avalanche and ice climbing and all the related stuff to that. We insure the U.S. Avalanchers Association, which is the guys who, are licensed to shoot down avalanches, and they're given military ordinances and howitzers to do it with. And so, I've been doing it for 43 years, and it was all the beginning of really Exum couldn't get insurance, and they were all out of business at the time in 1985.
So what is Exum for those that don't know? I mean, we know what Exum is, but what is Exum?
Exum is the oldest and most experienced guide company in the country. We are in Grand Teton National Park, which is really where climbing began. It's the history of climbing. And we're proud to be where we are. We're proud to be a company that has a great partner like you, but we also have a great safety record. We just don't have many incidences. And the one serious, we did have a fatality since I've been an owner, and Rick sent someone within a day to help us through the whole process, and ended up not even going to court.
Right.
There was no real claim made by the parties.
Well, and I think death cases, small cases, if you have a plan, you actually manage them in the most positive way possible, right? So, somebody gets injured or killed, you're supposed to report it. Do you report it? A lot of people don't. And when you ask them when they get sued 2 years later, why didn't you report it? It's like, well, I didn't think we did anything wrong, and I'm reporting it now. And insurance says report anything that could become a claim, right? The reason people have been trained over many, many years not to report claims is because you're not supposed to have claims. They're going to cancel. That's what everybody says.
Right.
Why didn't you report? I'll get canceled.
And that's been a hard one to convince our guides. It's okay. Tell us.
Right.
We want to know something happened and nothing came of it, but we're still going to tell the insurance company.
And it's proactive, right? You learn from it. You share it. I had a guy in Naples. He runs an equipment company, and one of his guys backed into the car. He calls me up. It was a Saturday, and I give everybody my cell phone number because the lawyers are working 24/7. So we got to respond and he's like, I'm going to fire him. I can't believe it. You're going to cancel me. And I'm like, I'm not going to cancel you. You pay insurance so that when you have claims, you report them and we manage it. So I would like you to call the guy that your driver backed into and say, look, I'm a business owner. Unfortunately, we had this scuffle with you. My driver just reported. Tell me what your story is, and I'm telling you, I'm here to do the right thing. Right? I run a good business, and I don't want you to have any out-of-pocket expenses and we do that in death cases with families too, right? But it's having an offense or a proactive approach, which, for whatever reason, the dynamics of an insurance relationship. Now, in my own personal opinion is the local agents, it doesn't matter who it is, State Farm or whatever, they get the reports, right? That's not what the policies say. The policies say report it to the company, and it says the company right in the policy. When you report it to the agent, in many cases, they're trying to manage their book, right? It's like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't report that. Now, some agents do report everything. Majority of agents are trying to, and I heard this on, an upcoming call we had last week for this round table tomorrow, and the industry was saying, the agents, people in the industry, is like, how do we make ourselves more attractive to insurers, right? And I'm like, that's kind of the wrong question, right? The question should be, when we as a company or an industry have a death, have a claim, what is our strategy, right? Because I remember the first time we had a guy die in the boat of a heart attack, and the outfitter wanted to pay. He's like, well, isn't that what insurance is for? And I'm like, not really. That's life insurance. If you want to be paid $1 million anytime you keel over, that's life insurance, and you buy that. These businesses, like all other businesses, buy liability insurance, right? So they have to prove you liable, and once you're liable, it goes to damages. Well, what are your damages, right? If you're an NFL football kicker and you just signed a new $4 million contract and I ran over your foot and you can't earn that money, that's how damages are figured. But, it's really simple math. It's not, and again, people who don't have a job, they want $4 million. And it's like, you can't prove that, right? And that's why, again, we go to court a lot and we win. We just had a case in Miami-Dade County, Florida, which is supposedly a legal hellhole, the biggest law firm in the country, who advertise all over, $5 million demand, dropped to $1.9 million at the courthouse steps. We go to trial, and the jury gives them a goose egg, a big zero, right? And we'd offered them $2,500. But the whole thing with insurance and, if I issue you a policy and I'm not your partner and some lawyer's suing you for $5 million, my approach is totally different than somebody who actually is your partner and says,
Right.
this isn't worth $2,500.
Right.
And, I get challenged by actuaries and regulators, and everybody else is like, well, they're suing you for $5 million. I'm like, yeah, they're crazy, aren't they? But they actually get credibility, right, from people. Well, they wouldn't sue you for $5 like they're honest, upright people. And they're swinging for the fences. And then at the courthouse steps, they drop to $1.9 million. That kind of shows that the $5 million was a joke.
Was out there, right?
But, and I'm sure they were hoping $500,000 or $1 million was where we would eventually land. And it's always my challenge, and every other insurance company's challenge is you, the insured, get to make the final decision. And that's where insurance companies, when you were uninsurable in '85 and I came into it, they'd just given up. Like, anytime anybody gets injured or killed, we got to pay them a big pile of money. And that's when, we took the case in California to the Supreme Court, where everybody said release forms were no good. And guess what? The Supreme Court upheld the release form. And it's still cited today nationwide, and that's the foundation of recreational business, right? You have to be able to assume risk, and a release form is no good if you increase the risk, if you're negligent or liable. But if, what can happen does happen, and you did your job as a professional, you're not liable, right? Your ropes didn't fail, your ropes were old ropes, bad ropes, your guides weren't properly trained, or you take people, Bill Dvorak was just here, he says, so you still insure class 5 water? And I'm like, yeah, but it's got to be a partnership where you don't have outfitters taking novices into,
Right.
Like you guys, you got to do the beginner course, you got to do the intermediate course.
You have to prove you can do it.
Right, and if
before
you
get to do
can't,
it,
you
right?
don't get to go try and climb the ridge. So, and actually it's easier to defend the higher risk stuff, right? The hardest case I ever had was on a city lake, where Grandpa and his granddaughter went out in the boat. They had life jackets in the boat, but they didn't put them on, and the boat flipped over, totally flat water, and the grandpa died, right? That, did he assume the risk? Did you tell him to, but if you're climbing a mountain or you're jumping out of a plane with a parachute,
You should know.
yeah.
There's risk.
Yeah, and people say, oh, minors can't accept risk. I'm like, well, I got grandkids, and I see grandkids. Some of them will climb up on that table and jump off, and other ones are afraid to climb up on the table. So risk is something that I think we know well before we're of legal age, 18. But so tell me about some of the challenges you guys have. You just renewed your permit for like 10 years.
We're in year 1 of a 10-year contract.
Oh, really?
So that's a relief. That's always probably the biggest hassle we have,
Right,
is renewing
right.
that contract and managing just what it takes to work with the park.
Right,
But we have a great relationship with Grand Teton National Park.
right.
So again, it's a partnership there too.
Yep.
So Exum's in a good position. We've been very successful in operating in a way that keeps them happy and provides a great service for their clients, their
Right.
visitors, and our clients.
Well, yep. So what can you tell us that we don't know about the history, like Glenn Exum and who his partners were in the beginning? I'm sure you know.
He
the
was pretty
history.
much, he was Glenn and Paul Petzold, who formed the company, and then Paul went on and formed Knowles, and Glenn kept the company in the Tetons. Their whole approach was to be a school of climbing rather than just taking people to the summit.
Right.
So back then, every single client learned how to belay, participated in the belaying of the climbs, and was just an active member of the team. over time, there are now industry standards, and the tolerance for risk has changed quite significantly.
Right.
And so clients are not quite as involved, but we still pride ourselves as a school. We still teach. We still want the clients to feel a part of it. We don't just take people to the top. And I think my partner Nat and I are pretty proud of maintaining that part of the tradition.
Well, the legacy and the tradition. So then Al Reed, Peter Lev, and Rod Newcomb come in, and I know that there were permit challenges during that time. There was the Bridwell event, but how did they change the company, and what was their relationship with Glen Exum?
They had a great relationship. There was actually a fourth owner for a while. Dean Moore was an owner with the three of them, and they bought him out about a few years before I bought in. But they ran the company. They traded officer positions. They pretty much ran it collectively, and it was very successful. It grew very fast, and I think they eventually needed someone to try to manage the administrative side of it, and that's when I showed up.
All right.
And I, actually showed up in the Tetons to be a guide. That lasted about a week when I realized I could do more and would be happier working in the office.
Right. So do you still stay in touch with Peter or any of them?
Peter died a few months ago.
Oh, really?
Rod died 3 weeks ago, a month ago, and Al died a couple years ago.
Really?
So yeah, they are all gone, and that's been a big change for us. As each of them died, it's like, okay, now.
Right.
Yeah, it's a different company, but yet there's many things that are still the same.
Yeah. Well, I always called them the Three Amigos. I think Al lived in San Francisco, right?
San Rafael.
And ran.
And Peter moved around a lot, and Rod was always right there local in
Rod
Jackson.
was the snow.
He was the snow
avalanche
scientist.
expert,
Right.
and Peter, I think I heard he moved to South Dakota or something.
He did, and then he was in California when he died, I think.
But Al Reid, what was the name of his international travel company?
Geographic Expeditions.
Right.
Yep.
Well, that was many, many years ago.
Yeah.
So,
They were great people, and I'm very grateful they let me become a part of it.
Right. So how many guides does Exum have now?
During the summer, we probably have 75 to 90 guides on the roster, and on a busy day, we'll send out 40.
Right.
So we're tracking 40 guides throughout the Tetons. In the winter, it's much smaller, 6 to 10
So what
guides a
was
day.
your history? Did you know like Mug Stump or any
No,
of the guys?
I actually came from corporate America.
Oh, really?
I just worked for AT&T for many, many years as a high-level manager in their IT department, and got tired of it. So I flew over Mount Rainier when I transferred out to Seattle and thought it looked pretty cool and started climbing.
Right. So that's where you first climbed, was Rainier?
Rainier was the first mountain I climbed. At the time, I was married to Tom Hargis at the time when I first went to Exum.
Oh,
And Tom was a great Northwest guide,
right.
and he was invited by Al to be a guest guide at Exum. It might have been Peter, but one of them invited him to come down. And so I went with him, and that was in '96, and we pretty much never left.
Oh. So what about I was thinking about back when, I insured the Canadian Mountain Guides Association, Carl Klassen, and they couldn't get coverage, and we did their association. And at the same time, the American Mountain Guides Association was kind of trying to take over. And I remember Peter and, they were like, you need to go to our class and get certified. And Peter and Al would call me and say, are you going to make us go to their class? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to,
It was a pretty adversarial relationship between Exum and the AMGA when it started. Now, the AMGA runs great courses, and it is very helpful to us
Right.
to know that the guides we're hiring at least have that level of experience.
Right. But I think anytime you have you know, again, I remember typing policies on a typewriter and phones attached to cords, right? So, you know, the American Mountain Guides Association was trying to follow the European and the Canadian deal, and it all made sense.
See, Exum didn't follow that,
Right.
which is
well,
what
and
caused
they
that
insulted
adversarial
him,
relationship.
though. They
Right.
insulted him. It's like, well, you guys haven't passed our course, and they're like, dude, I could have written your course, right? And I probably would have done it a little bit different than you.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that you have to give people that, you know, they're building the new standards based off of what they did. Not that they did everything perfectly, but I think, you know, it rubbed Peter and Al and Rod the wrong way. It was like, you're
Oh,
going to
by all
test me,
means.
you
Right.
know? You
Right.
couldn't test me if you want to be like asking Michael Jordan if, you know, you could
Make a
show
shot.
him how to
Yeah.
shoot, right? So anyway, that was just something that popped into my mind. But the American Mountain Guide Association now is the standard.
It
It's
is.
where everybody gets their certifications, and it's a
And
great
it is much
organization,
more of a standardized approach to guiding.
right?
So it's not a lot of guides doing things out there their own way. There are some standards. There's still some flexibility for guides to do things slightly differently,
Right.
but it's been a helpful
Right.
change.
Well, we're down here for the American. You're a member of America Outdoors, right? And,
I am.
you know, in the beginning in the 80s, it was Western River Guides Association and Eastern Professional River Guides Association. And then, like, there was a climbing association. Wyoming had a guides association. And I'm sure they still have state associations. But America Outdoors was merged, the merger of the Western River Guides and Eastern River Guides, and now it's really all outdoor activities. And they're having their annual meeting here in Salt Lake City. I mean, this, you know, America Outdoors hasn't been around. It was the prior organizations, EPRO and Western River Guides Association. That was my first meeting in 1985 when nobody could get insurance. And, you know,
It's still primarily river guides. I
Yeah.
mean, there are not many mountaineering companies,
Right.
and we may be the only one.
Right. I mean, they would like to have other members and stuff, but again, I think that they would need to cater more to guest ranches, and I know there's a guest ranch association and there's state associations. So when you're in business, you know, joining a bunch of associations isn't really helpful. Takes more of your time and more of your money, but obviously the valuable ones are valuable and do serve, you know, ability for people to get educated and help each other. So anyway, I do think that, you know, outfitting and guiding, as I said earlier, is, you know, they were in the land of the misfit toys in 1985. And I think, you know, WOGA, Worldwide Outfitter and Guide Association, which we formed to provide a solution then. Now I own X Insurance and Prime Insurance Company. So, you know, as an agent before, I had to beg people to do stuff. Now I own the insurance company, so, you know, it's if it makes sense, I can do it. I don't have to go, you know, talk to a primary underwriter and get them to. And, you know, for the first, from 85 to 95, that's what I did. I was trying to talk companies into liking outfitting and guiding and not seeing it as an uninsurable class. And, you know, we do about 500 outfitters and guides nationwide now, and I have about 10,000 clients. Everything from homeowners to car dealerships to bars to resorts. But for whatever reason, they find themselves in the land of the misfit toys. And it's a growing island, and it's really not you, right? One day, Chubb wants your homeowners in California or in Montana, and the next year, they don't want it.
They don't.
Jackson's the same, right? Everywhere in the West is now wildfire.
Right.
And so people aren't interested in riding there. And, you know, again, if you have a partnership, not a policy, right, and you do the whole job, like wildfire, flood, earthquake, all these perils, you know, why are we talking about perils? If it's your home or your business, if you get sued, you need a partner that covers everything the way you need it covered. If I do half of it and you got to deal with the other half, I mean, it's like building a house with half a contractor and you're going to have the other guy finish it. It's a recipe for disaster.
Right.
And, you know, storms, Katrina was my first experience with a catastrophe, and multiple policies do not work. They are going to make lawyers rich. So, you know, I came from the liability side, defending liability suits for businesses, and the strategy now is, you know, we're going to cover you, but we're going to exclude sexual abuse and molestation. We're going to exclude assault and battery. We're going to exclude, you know, and the exclusions go on and on. And again, I'm like, that is the wrong move, right? If you're in the self-defense business and you're teaching women how to defend themselves, and or you're doing a security guard and it's like, we'll insure you, but we don't want assault and battery, you're telling me you really don't want to insure me. What you want to do is cherry pick my best parts, and then you want me to go fend for myself and buy a separate policy, which everybody in the world makes more money by, you know, bifurcating it.
Yeah.
And you get worse. You're not getting what
Service,
you want.
right.
And as a risk taker, I'm not getting what I want either, right? You can't do half of the job. It's just, you know, any job, you can do 98%, and the last 2%, if you don't do it, you kind of wasted your time doing the
Doing the other.
98%. So, you know, it is, to me, the industry selling more policies, excluding more, increasing prices, and that's why everybody hates insurance. And, you know, to look back at 1985 when I was, you know, stupid kid trying to solve a problem and believing that, you know, there's a better way to do it, not a policy, but a partnership, and the outdoor, you know, legends of the world like Exum mountain guides and the rafting companies and helicopter ski guides that are the best in the business, not just in the U.S., really in the world. I mean, our guys go to Mount Everest and do, you know, the logistics everywhere. So it's proof that it doesn't matter what business you're in, right? You can accomplish so much more with good partners, employees. You know, your guides are partners. Everybody, the Park Service is a partner. If you're working together, anything can be accomplished. If you're fighting amongst each other, which is what lawyers try and do with their lawsuits, and why I think the insurance industry should recognize more trickery, right? More exclusions, more fine print, you're getting further away from the solution. You're not getting closer to it. So, you know, it's exciting for me to have you here, America Outdoors here. You know, we do about 500 outfitters and guides nationwide now, and I don't think even 50 are here. So, you know, that would be one of my goals. I'd like to help, you know, people know that America Outdoors is out there and helpful. Obviously, America Outdoors needs to show that they're beneficial to a broader, you know, scope. And really, anybody with a government permit
Right.
needs some shepherds to help them navigate that
That
land.
process.
There is hope, right? That's what you got to tell them. So anyway, Exum is still a member of Worldwide Outfitter and Guide Association. Prime is the insurer of Worldwide Outfitter and Guide Association. We issue, you know, many people around the country, not through Worldwide. They come to us through their local agent or broker.
Okay.
Because as an insurance company, we do that. So anyway, we feel lucky and blessed to know you and Nat and all your legacy and the history.
And that goes both ways.
I brag
has
about
been-
you all the time and tell people that if you want to go to the best, go to Exum.
And we say the same thing. If you want the best, go to Rick.
And Rainier's not bad either. So, but no, it's a great industry, and I think it's, you know, small American business that drives the country. Big businesses obviously are getting all the press now, but there's way more beneficial from the economy to local economy to, you know, to the small businesses that really drive Jackson Hole.
Right.
Right, so I love Jackson Hole. I need to get up there more. Haven't been there for a while. Anything
Come
on
climb the
here?
mountain.
Anything on here, Park? You want to? Barbara, you don't want to upset Barbara.
So how do you communicate? Can you communicate with any of your guides on the mountain?
Yes, our guides carry cell phones and they carry radios.
Radios and cell phones.
And radios are line of sight, so they can't actually get to the office very often. They can get to the rangers.
But
they can
like,
get
it's
to
not a
each
normal
other.
cell phone. It's a satellite.
We have a
phone, or-
satellite phone at our lower saddle hut.
Right.
And then other than that, they carry cell phones. And the coverage in the park is pretty good now. And they know exactly where to go to stand to use their cell phone. And the guides have to check in every night, when they summit at certain points. They have check-in times where they have to call the office so that we know where they are.
And then what? Are most of your trips overnight trips, or are they day trips? What?
The Grand Teton is primarily an overnight trip. The really fit people who show up can climb it in a day. Most, it's a 2-day climb. But a large part of our business now is families just going out for a day, or husband and wife, friends.
So you guys do day trips?
We do
you'll
day
cater-
trips.
Yeah.
But if you want to summit, you actually have to do the basic or show that you can, right?
Yeah, it's not like you just show up and
You
summit.
can't show up and go. You basically have to prove in at least one day of preparation that you are fit enough to try and that you have the technical ability to climb the mountain, to do what's required. And if they're somewhat good, they might be able to go to the enclosure, which is not the summit, but still a very fun climb. And if they're ready to go, then they get to go on one of 2 routes on the Grand, depending on how they do and the weather.
So where's the enclosure? And what's the top?
It's called the West Summit, and it's not really even a part of the Grand Teton, but it's still an accomplishment for people who are less fit. And if they really aren't fit, they don't get to go at all. We just basically tell them they can't go.
So the top, if you summit, what's the elevation?
13,775. And we have 2 routes that go to the summit, the Exum Ridge and the Owen Spalding. The Owen Spalding is easier, and the Exum Ridge is harder. In bad weather, we are always on the Owen Spalding because we can just turn around and come down.
Right.
On the ridge, we have to keep going up before we can
turning
come
back.
down.
Well, any other interesting facts about?
Barb wants to ask, what advice would you give to someone dreaming of their first big climb?
Prepare. A lot of climbing is mental, but you also have to be fit. And I think that is probably the biggest challenge for people. Most of our people come to us by word of mouth. They've heard from a friend that it's really fun, go climb the Grand. But what that friend doesn't tell them is that it's also really darn hard. It's not a walk in the park.
It's
So
not
we
your
actually
typical
partnered with a
hike.
training company that provides a training plan, and we strongly encourage people to take it. Most don't, but at least when they get there, if they don't make it, we've told them, we've done our part to tell them,
So
you
when
need
you
to
say
get
a
ready.
training plan, they send them like walk 10 miles or?
Exactly. They have weekly sessions. It's just planned out for them. Do this week, and then build on that for 12 to 16 weeks before you go try to climb the mountain.
So, but that's like to go to the summit. You
Yes.
guys will cater to families.
Oh, and you don't have
So
to
that's
qualify.
more like hiking, like the family stuff. You guys will take just hikes around the Teton in the park.
We can't hike. Our permit
can't
doesn't
hike.
let us hike. Everything we
just
do, they have on
climbing.
a harness and a helmet, and we're using a rope. So even with the kids, we take them
It's
to
like
our.
basic, right?
It's like a basic
Right.
level 1 school.
Do
And
you
then-
guys have any Via Ferratas or no?
No, we don't. There is a Via Ferrata at Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, but it's not ours.
Right.
So do you know Mike Friedman?
I know Mike Friedman so well. I met Mike Friedman when I first went to Exum, and I spent time in basements of hotels trying to figure out what we were going to do about the AMGA with Mike
Right.
Friedman and Peter Lev and Al Reed. And it was Mike Friedman that you sent to us when we needed help.
Right. That's right. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot that. But Mike, he owned Telluride Helitrax, and Joe Royer has Ruby Mountain, and Frank Wells from Disneyland died in a helicopter with Joe. Then 3 days later, Christy Brinkley crashed in Telluride with Mike, and you know, she was married to the guy that owned the helicopter. So Mike said, "Oh, she's never going to sue." We had a little side bet. I said, "Mike, she is going to sue." Right? People like that don't go away. So anyway, you know, those are, again, you know, tragic events. And again, it has nothing to do with the skiing or the guiding. That's the transportation. And we've had this case in Alaska where the Czechoslovakian billionaire died like 3 or 4 years ago. And the lodge was named on the helicopter, which is what we do, and Christy Brinkley and Joe. And, you know, if they die skiing with us and they name the helicopter, we have to settle for the helicopter. So in this case, there's a lawyer up there that I won't say her name that has kind of turned, and so she got AIG to settle the case and leave the lodge out. Which again, you know, if you buy general liability, our policy doesn't cover aircraft. You're getting that over there. But we couldn't leave them, right? If I'd have left them, they would have been screwed. So we've taken it all the way to the Supreme Court in California, or in Alaska, and the court told AIG, you need to reopen that claim and go resettle it. Now, the guides, you know, they're just glad it's over.
Right.
And, you know, we had to spend $2 million to get AIG to do the right thing. So it's far from over,
Right.
right? They don't see the benefit to it. I'm like, you guys, you don't understand that if we'd have let this happen, every business, right, hotels, right, that have buses come there, casinos, anything where transportation is handled this way, this lawyer was trying to expand their ability to more pasture, right, and get more money. And this is why you need partners, not people who abandon you at that time, because it's not only going to ruin their business, it's going to affect businesses down the road.
Right.
And again, I called Joe Royer. I didn't call Mike Friedman because he's not involved in the helicopter ski business anymore. But, you know, the relationships and the people that you have in the industry help you make people comfortable, just like when Mike Friedman came up and met with you guys, because he had dealt with other
Right.
claims, as Joe has. So, you know, I think that the network is something that if you don't use, you're missing a big opportunity. So we appreciate the history of Exum, our history, and anything we can ever do for you guys, you know, we'll be there. So just give us a
Right.
ring, a dingy. And we're going to get Parker up there climbing.
Yeah. Live stream. Neil will be right behind me.
Sure.
Yeah. As long as we have a clear view of the sky, we're good. I think we should. We're on the cliffside.
You can wear that backpack and get that cancer from the
Yeah.
radiation.
Yeah. But we appreciate you coming on, and we've always
thanks
heard
for having
great
me.
things about you, and hope to make it up there and climb with you guys one day.
Tell Nat hi.
I will do
haven't
that.
talked with him for a while, but we talked a lot for a while there.
We talk every once in a while about your trip to DC.
Say that. Yeah, well, we got what we had to done, and it was all good. So, but again, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I